Welcome everyone once again to our regular weekly show on YouTube Spain. Happy New Year, where we ask the experts what you want to know about moving to Spain. I'm Skatz, hello, and today we're going to be giving you updates on the new IPREM figure, which tells you how much you need in savings or passive income for your Spanish visa, and we'll be telling you what's happening about UK driving licenses, and we'll also run through the residency process for EU citizens like me, because this week I finished the process and got my card at last. I officially live here. Yay! Plus, of course, we'll be answering your questions, viewers' questions from YouTube and Facebook, so stick around to the end and enjoy the show. Of course, you can join in the live chat either over here or down there, depending on which platform you're on. And if you're watching the recording, you can give comments, questions in the comments below. And within a few days of the live show, you can find the time codes for all of the answers and questions that have been in this video. And that'll be in the video description below. That'll save you having to scroll through every time you watch the video, so you can find the answers you need. Okay, so welcome to YouTube Spain. Cue the music. So just before we begin and meet our wonderful guest, don't forget, you can get your very own YouTube Spain t-shirts. I have one here, which I'll show you later. That's a prize. Yes, we have prizes as well. So you can get t-shirts, hoodies, other kind of goodies from our merchandise page. And you can also post questions on our YouTube Spain Facebook group and chat with people like you who are moving to Spain or have done already. And so join up with that. Ask to join the group. The link is once again in the video description below. And once again, we're going to be having some prizes, as I said, to give away at the end of the show. So settle down. We'll show you what those are at the end. Enjoy the show. So welcome to our guest for the day. It's a Happy New Year to Chris from Upsticks. Hola, Chris.
Hola, Happy New Year.
Yes, Feliz Año Nuevo. That's how we say it over here. Yeah. So you've had a good Christmas and New Year?
Yes, yeah, it was wonderful. Thank you very much. Yeah, it was brilliant. Managed to take a bit of time off and get a little trip in up to Barcelona and back. So that was good.
Yes, you did a massive trip. How many, like 1,800 kilometers or something?
2,200.
Wow, that's a lot of driving.
7 days over a week. Just visited. We stayed in Valencia. There's a place in Castellón called Peñascola, which had won a prize for the Christmas lights. So we went and saw that, and then messed about in Catalonia for a bit, and then came back and stayed in Alicante on the way home. So it was a nice little round trip.
Brilliant. Oh, that's good to hear. And the weather's beautiful today. So we'll get on with the details of today's show. We'll start with IPREM. I suppose that would be a good one to start with. And I'm going to put up the figures that we have for the new IPREM. Let's get those. So first of all, just briefly tell everybody what IPREM is, so they know what we're talking about.
So basically, IPREM is an indicator that the Spanish government it's a base rate for things like benefits and pensions, etc., and sort of minimum wage. Let's call it the minimum wage. There is another calculator, but this would be like a minimum livable wage calculator for benefits, shall we say, that the Spanish government use. And evidently, with inflation going up quite a bit this year, the Spanish government have put IPREM up for the second year in a row. But this also relates to what you need when you're getting residency. So I saw a comment the other day on Facebook saying, "Oh, why are they making it so difficult for us to come and making it more expensive?" It's not actually anything to do with people coming in getting residency. It's what's happening within Spain. IPREM's gone up because people are going to need more money to live because of inflation. So that's why it's gone up. And as I say, it relates to your residency application, whether that be visa or EU, whichever way you're coming in, because that's how they calculate what you need to live on when you're sending your proof or giving proof to the authorities that you want to live here in Spain.
Perfect. And as everybody can see on the screen now, we have the EPREM figures for 2022, which have gone up by 2.5%. So the monthly figure, 579.02 euros. That's gone up from 564.90, and which that makes the annual amount 6,948.24. That's gone up from 6,778.80. So that means your 400% EPREM that you need for an individual for the main applicant is now 27,782.26. There you go.
Yeah. I mean, that means. I mean, to be honest, I don't think it's going to have. I say that we always, when we're talking about non-lucrative, if we talk about non-lucrative visas first, although it has gone up again, we always stand by that you shouldn't really just toe the line with the minimum amount anyway. You know, if it is income, like passive income, like a pension, then then you can get close to the minimum required amount, because that's a monthly payment, and you can prove you're going to have that moving forward. And that's where it would be a problem if for people who are working on that basis. But for people who work, a lot of people have like a sort of a 5-year plan when they're doing their non-lucrative visa. And certainly recently we saw last year with the introduction of non-lucrative visa, where people have brought their plans forward, maybe cashed in certain assets and working on a base of income and savings, or maybe they're retiring early and stuff. In that sense, I don't think it's going to have too much impact on people, coming over. Not with the non-lucrative visa. For the EU side of things, again, depending on the EU residencies, depends on the area where you are. I know that, we don't really do many up in Alicante because we're not there. We're here in Malaga, but I know in Alicante they were asking for 1.5 times EPREM per applicant, whereas here in Malaga, if you're a single applicant and you can prove that you're earning EPREM, over the space of a year, then you'll get your residency. So yeah, but it has gone up due to inflation, I assume, and I don't think it's going to have too much of an impact on residency applications.
Yeah, cool. And that's excuse me, a question on screen. I can't get my teeth out today. Stephanie Cullinane has said, "Congratulations, Andrew." That's my name, by the way, in case anybody's wondering. Can I ask how much income you needed as an EU citizen in order to get residency? So that was in this particular area, Malaga province. It's just 1 times EPREM, isn't it?
Yeah. So yeah, generally, obviously, what you've got is there's the first thing to highlight there is the person, when you're doing an EU residency, as we know, you get it on the day, and you're going to go through your experience now, aren't you? And there's a person behind the desk who assesses your paperwork, and it's down to them to make that decision. So even if you've got 1 times EPREM and they decide that that's not a sorry, call coming in there, and they decide that that's not enough, and they do have the right to turn around and say, no, we want to see more. But as a general rule, here in Malaga, they want to see you've got at least 100% EPREM as an income over the year. Now, how you demonstrate that, depending on what your circumstances are, if you're working abroad or stuff, sometimes it's quite hard because they want to see you registered here. But going back to the amount, it's normally 100%. And then if you're working on a basis of savings, then they could ask up to 5 times, because your initial temporary residency is for 5 years. Yeah, we've had that before in the past. So we always generally work on a rule that if you're going through income, it's got to be 100%, and if you're going through savings, then the minimum really should be 500%. Though, to be honest, we have pushed it through with less, but that's really the basic structure that you need to work.
Great. We've had a question come through on the live chat, so let's throw that one in straight away. From Thameside Kickboxing Junior Academy. So we'd better be careful what we say, because we might get beaten up. He says, "I have a job ready in Alicante, trying for a work visa. It's been in the process since October. A company in Pinoso working on it, paying the process, prepared all paperwork, but was told can take months." So that can be a difficult, long-winded process, can't it?
Yeah, as I say, the work visas are actually processed by the company itself. So we recently looked at it again because somebody asked us the question, and basically it's the company that has to prove first its solvency and why it's employing you, etc., etc. There's a certain amount of paperwork that they have to put in place here before you actually can get the approval. So you get the approval in Spain, and then that company will send it to you. You go to oh, my glasses are wonky. You go to the consulate and then get your visa issued on the basis of that approval. So, but yeah, it can take a long time, I believe, the work visas.
There you go. And our guest says, yeah, good vibes. So yeah, peace and love, man. And what's your name? I say man, you could be a woman. Let's find out. So should we get on to driving licenses? That's covered EPREM, hasn't it? What's happening with the driving license?
More or less. There's not a lot more to say about that. So yeah, driving licenses. So evidently we've had this extension now. It seems to be extension after extension after extension, doesn't it? You know, it's been happening since June last year. And what they've said is, I've just printed off the driving in Spain because there was, I think you spoke quite extensively with Rochelle about driving licenses and stuff and the legalities of it. But I'm going to be honest, this is the first time last night I read the driving in Spain for a while in the UK government website. There's quite a lot of, like, should we say, not contradictory information, but information that if you're on the ground here and you hear what's happening in Spain, it's different to what they've actually published. And the first thing, so evidently they've now extended this period of which you can drive with a UK license in Spain until the 28th of February. And the very first thing they say when driving in Spain is that if you were living in Spain before the 1st of January 2021, your valid UK license will be recognised for driving in Spain until the 28th of February 2022. Okay, yeah, okay, right. So that's this period that they've extended. But before Brexit and before this all happened, when Brits and EU citizens get residency in Spain, they had to exchange their licenses before 2 years. So if you were living in Spain for the 1st of January, but you were living in Spain more than 2 years ago, you should have exchanged your license anyway. You know, so it doesn't quite explain that. So people who have lived with residency, never exchanged their license for one reason or another, maybe have been here for more than 10 years and for some reason haven't exchanged their license. This extension doesn't mean that you're now legal to drive on your license. It should have been done. So there's been a couple of cases where people have been stopped and they've said, well, no, we've got this extension, and it's like, yeah, but you've been resident for 3 years already. This should have been done, and they've been fined. So it doesn't really go. I suppose the driving in Spain page government website isn't going to go too deep into that, but it isn't a. If you've had residency for more than 2 years, it should have been done. And then obviously also it's down to the interpretation of the local police who stop you, isn't it? And then try and overturn a fine, So I know people who got stopped on the coast in Benalmádena the other day. Somebody got stopped. They got their residency within the withdrawal agreement. That's less than 2 years ago, and according to this, they can still drive in their UK driving license, and they got a fine. Now they're going to appeal that fine, but it is very much down to who stops you as well, fortunately.
Yeah.
And what they also mentioned here is that so we had a period where if you pre-registered your license with the DGT during last year, you could still make the exchange. So we had the big rush up to the 31st of December 2020, where I think the DGT realised that there wasn't going to be enough time to do all the exchanges, so they offered a pre-registration period. And then last year, the whole of last year, that was initially only for 6 months to complete that process. They extended it until the 31st of December. And according to the UK government website, that hasn't been extended to the February deadline.
Right. What do
So
we think? What do you think is going to happen next? Is it just going to keep on extending, or do you think they'll get round to it eventually? And I'll,
can I can offer a personal opinion, can't I?
yeah, please, yeah,
You know, so okay, personally, right. So I've just, I mean, I can't. I mean, the Brits in Spain, which is a brilliant, Facebook page, but it's very inconclusive on with the driving licenses. So I mean, they just said that negotiations are continuing. We stand ready to conclude that agreement as soon as possible. Unfortunately, we are not there yet. And then in the next breath, it's obviously if you need to drive, and you should consider taking a test now. So I would really, really, really like to know what it is that they can't conclude, or what. There's obviously some sort of political issue there, which is putting a block on this. But I can't see why they would still keep giving extensions if they're not going to do it. And I've said that from the start. I said after the first extension, I honestly said the first extension, I think it ended at something like, I think it was in September, was it? Yeah, it was the end of September or something. I said, well, they're not going to come to an agreement then because that's just after the summer. Everybody's getting back to work. They'll probably be extended to the end of the year, which it was. And now it's obviously the end of the year is Christmas, so there's nobody working then. It's been extended to February. I think that they're going to come to an agreement. I'm hopeful, and I do. Now, what the exchange process will look like, it may be slightly different because for all the countries which have a convenio with Spain, which are not EU countries, Philippines, for example, has got one, Morocco, a lot of South American countries, the exchange process is slightly different, and also the categories which they recognise are slightly different as well. So how it will look, maybe there's something they can't agree on there on what are they actually going to recognise? Are they going to recognise up to a car, up to a lot of, we just don't know. But my opinion is that they will come to an agreement. But I just feel really bad for these people who are held in limbo at the moment, especially like your NLVs, which have got 6 months to drive, and they're going to get to the 3-month period. If there still isn't an agreement, then you're thinking, do I start the process of taking a test?
yeah. Good. Well, so that's all we know there. I've just flashed up 2 questions from the Facebook pages there from Ray Thatcher and Jeff Mitten. So thank you for your questions. Ray is obviously, as you can see from his grrr at the end, he's not particularly pleased about it. And of course, people are going, well, should I just take the test? And a lot of people have actually taken the test and spent all of that money. And if it comes through that there's an agreement, they're going to be particularly angry as well, having spent quite a lot of money to get it sorted. So
yeah, I suppose. Yeah, I mean, I've got one client just passed a theory test. Well done, and she's just cracked straight on. I mean, I suppose in that respect, if you do take a Spanish driving test, then you get to keep the UK license as well, because you keep both. Whereas if you exchange them, if there is an agreement, you'll lose your UK license. Well, you won't lose it. You could exchange it back if you decide to go home. But yeah, so the experience of taking a test here might be good for your Spanish as well. So
yeah.
that's a positive. But speaking to driving schools, we're getting a lot of inquiries now. People saying, well, what driving school do you work with? We're going to go for it. We've had enough of waiting for the decision. And I'll be honest, I've called a few, and some of the big ones are just not particularly that interested in coming to any, just like, it's coming into something maybe different. I'm not saying they should come to something different for the Brits, but maybe, people who have been driving for years and years and years, who might only need, X amount of lessons, because the driving schools think there's going to be an agreement anyway, and it'd be a waste of time. So
Yeah.
they're not going to put
Well,
their efforts into creating a service product that at the end of February is not going to be valid.
so I suppose that's the really good news for the people who are waiting, and that's just the chances are it's going to happen. So
Yeah, positive. That's what everybody thinks, and but I think everybody's waiting. Unless you really, again, but like the Brits and Spain page says, if you absolutely depend on driving, then this is political, and you should consider your other options as well.
yeah. Okay. So before we go into my residency process. We'll answer some of the questions, I think. So we've got one coming on the live chat from Alan Lackenby, which fits in with a few other questions that we've got. He says, "Hi everyone, I'm looking to apply for the non-lucrative visa and I was wondering if there's a best time to sell my property here in the UK, as I will need this money to last me at least the 5 years." I suppose the quick answer is get it done as soon as possible before you make your application, because you're going to need that information in order to you can't just be in the process of selling it, can you, and say, well, I'm going to have the money in the future, because they need to see the money in a bank, really.
Yeah, no, they do. And so tax, we don't give tax advice, but certainly speak to a tax advisor before you do anything, because they'll tell you the right time of year, etc., etc. If you depend on the funds to fund your non-lucrative visa, then you'll need to sell it before. If that's your primary residence, then obviously you've got to find someone to live during the visa process. And we always say, look, depending on where you're applying, whatever, you need to plan for like a 3-month temporary stay if you're selling your primary residence, applying for a visa, waiting for the visa coming over. And then also just be prepared that if you are using those funds for your non-lucrative visa appointment, then you will have to prove where they originated from. So we've used lawyers' letters, stuff like that before in the past, just to prove that, it's been a house sale.
There we go. And Alan has a further message. He's saying, as a couple moving, I know we need 35k the first year, then 70k for years 2 and 3, then 70 for years 4 and 5. You'll have a total of 130 in total for the move. Will this be enough?
Yeah, so talking about the renewals, you do, so for the first year, evidently you have to meet the requirement, and then it doubles for the second year. And that is at that point, when you come to renew, so you'll have to prove that you've got enough for the following 2 years. So they don't look at the 5 year. That is their prerogative to do so, but they won't look at the 5-year period initially. They'll look at the first year, and when you come to renew, they'll look at the following 2 years, and then because people's circumstances change. And then they want to make sure after the 3-year period that you qualify for the final 2 as well. So yeah.
You've got to think that you do need spending money, so you're going to be spending some of that 130 as you go along. But if you keep 70 in the bank for the whole of that 5-year period, well, certainly until year 4, when you put your reapplication in, then you should be fine with that amount.
Bearing in mind as well that people are going to be, everybody's financial structure is different, but people are, by default, you become a fiscal resident on a non-lucrative visa. So either, depending on when you move, it'll be year 1 or year 2 when you do your tax returns and stuff. And certainly once you get past year 2, you'll have a tax return and stuff to prove what your passive income is. And I would always advise, if you can put your savings somewhere in Spain, immigration always like to see. I'm not saying they won't accept money which is sat in an account abroad, but belts and braces is always to have the funds sat in a Spanish account.
Yeah, good. There's 2 other questions came in on the Facebook groups. They're both about capital gains tax, and I know you said you're not a tax expert, and neither am I, but I've got a basic answer which will help these 2, I think. Wendy Jackson says they're currently applying for the NLV, and the husband applying for the work visa. That's going to be interesting if you're applying for the 2 different ones. But anyway, the question is, we've seen posts about selling the UK home and capital gains costs. Any advice or signposting would be good. And let's just get the other one up on screen. So that would be Wendy. It's also somebody called Wendy. And that one is, no, that's not it. Question number 2, there it is. And Wendy Craig, planning to sell our UK home into Spain. It's all about selling up this year and relocating the following year. There's a quick answer, but a tax expert will give you the full answer. The quick answer is that if you sell your property this year, and then move in a different fiscal year when you become a fiscal resident, then you won't pay the capital gains tax in Spain. That's the basic answer. Or if you move in the if you sell your property in the first half of 2022 and move in the second half and don't spend 183 or more days in Spain, then you won't be a fiscal resident this year. You'll only start being a fiscal resident next year. But also, an accountant said to me, you can also, if you're buying a property in Spain in the same year, you can offset some of your capital gains tax from your UK property. So the basic advice is speak to a tax advisor, speak to your Hestor about that one. But that's what I know about it. Don't take my word as law.
No, you're absolutely right. It's all about fiscal residency. So at that point, so a tax advisor will tell you that line, that's when you become fiscal resident. At that point, whatever action you take, whether it be selling a property or whatever, you'll be liable for that tax in Spain. And as you quite rightly said, if it's your primary residence and you're selling the primary residence to buy a primary residence, then there's some breaks there. But yeah, certainly. I mean, we always, if someone is helping you do your non-lucrative visa and there's a liability, then really, they should put you on to somebody. But it's always good to get, independent advice about your financial situation.
Great stuff. Alan, again, who asked the question earlier, says, I have property already paid for over in Spain. Doesn't actually make any difference with your application for a non-lucrative visa, unfortunately. But that's handy because you won't be spending as much money when you're, on rent or something like that, or mortgage. So it'll be good for your living expenses at least.
Yes, it's funny that, because I'll tell you, two experiences that we had last year was we always advise people who have got property in Spain, I'll tell you where this came from now, that they should take an up-to-date notice simply, which you can actually get online, which proves from the land registry, which proves that you're the current owner of the property. Now, we did this a couple of times with Manchester, and right at the beginning, well, about mid-June it would have been when we were the first sort of application to go through. And Manchester's dismissed it. Like, they said, well, what you brought this for, type thing. We're advising people to take them. And that's a good idea, because here in Malaga, it's actually classed as part of an asset if you're going for an EU resident. So, and we're still advising still. So when I went and visited London, they said, oh no, that's a really good idea. The fact that you've got a notice simply means that when the case is assessed by immigration, they can see that if you are close to the line with the income requirements, that you're not going to have to spend any money, as you quite rightly said, on rent. So it's sort of, chalk and cheese. We are still advising people, even at Manchester, that you've got a property in Spain, to take an up-to-date notice simply and add it to your file. I think it's a good idea.
Oh, that's handy. Great to know. We have a question from Thameside Kickboxing Junior Academy again, who said his name is Lee, by the way. I noticed that earlier. He said, sorry, me again. I have a property in Spain, have funds, house sale money not needed for his non-lucrative visa. Will the sale, if I have the TIE, affect selling linked to owing Spain capital gain tax? Oh yeah, I see. I think I see what he means there. If he sells the property and has to pay capital gains tax and won't have as much money, I think. I'm not sure I understand the question, but that's because you already have the funds, so I don't think that's going to affect anything really.
No, I think that's answered before. It depends. You'll be liable if you're a fiscal resident and not liable if you're not, obviously, when you sell a property. And I also touch on the Model 720, that when you become a resident here, obviously you have to declare your overseas assets as well, which again, can't talk about too much about because we're not tax advisors, but it's a good idea to do, because if you do a Model 720 and then you declare your overseas assets, which could include a property over €50,000, it's got to be, in a few years' time, if you do decide to sell that property, bring those funds to Spain, then they know where they've come from because you've declared it at the beginning of your residency.
He's just clarified. He said, sorry, it means if I have a TIE, will the CGT be charged? I would say ask a tax advisor for that.
I would say, but but there's the likelihood that if you've got your TIE already, you could be classed as a fiscal resident by the authorities here.
Yeah, excellent. So, and he says, good to hear tax advice. That's what I was really asking about. So if I sold my property here in UK, say in June, and then move over in Spain November, then for tax in Spain won't start until January. Effectively, yes. So there we go. Another question come through. We'll have to get onto the questions from Facebook as well. What's your time limit today, Chris? Do you have to be gone by 11?
No, we're good today. Unfortunately, today is accounts day, which you'll get used to. So I have Antonio screaming at me because it's the 8th and I haven't handed in my account, so I'm stuck here all day finishing off. So
there we go. Antonio's our Hestor, isn't he? So there you go. Hello, Antonio. If you're watching, he probably isn't.
He'll be pulling his hair on me on Monday if I'm not got him ready. So
yeah. So Alan McAfee, is that? Sorry, I can't see the name properly. Morning, gents. When is the last time you have to demonstrate that you have enough funds? This is for an NLV, presumably the reapplication. After year 3 or when the 5 years is up, do you have to show again? It's after year 3 on year 4, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's you before you get your permanent residency. So you got year 1, you renew, year 3, and then year 5 when you switch to permanent residency.
Yeah. So you have to show it again. You have to prove something when you go to permanent residency. You have to prove funds then.
Before once you have permanent residency, you don't. It's just a renewal process. So year 1, year 3, and then year 5 to switch to permanent residency as well.
Okay, there we go. That's all the questions. When do you become, Lee again, when do you become a fiscal resident? Is it when you have the TIE? No, it's when you've spent more than 183 days in one tax year, you become a fiscal resident. There you go. So back to, let's see, we've had all the questions about capital gains tax. We have questions about the 90-180 rule. So let's put one of those up. That is number 3. Here it is. Chris Bennett says, any news on the 90 and 180 rule changing? Well, quick answer to this is the 90-180 rule, the so-called 90-180 rule. There is no official title that says 90-180 rule. Is actually a Schengen rule. That's a European law. It's not a Spanish law, and it means what happens when you come over the border into the Schengen area, and that rule is not going to change. That European law is not going to change for third country citizens, which includes UK citizens, of course. But if you mean the number of days that a UK citizen can spend in Spain, if you are a swallow, for example, that's one of the UK homeowners that come over for their holidays and try and spend 6 months over here in the winter. I don't think that's going to change. What do you think, Chris?
No, I think it comes from, wasn't it the Alicante area that there was sort of a publication from where they were pushing that maybe for local authorities or something was campaigning for. I can't see it changing. I can't see it changing at all. Because the other thing as well, I wrote an article on this actually. I'll share with you about swallows and stuff. Because as an EU citizen, before 90 days, if you intend to spend more than 90 days in Spain, you have to register as a resident anyway. So it wouldn't be fair. Now there was a lot of people, evidently swallows or was it winter owls or something? I can't remember the other name. Who would come spend 4 or 5 months, and it would be ridiculous for them to register as resident and have to deregister and stuff. So there's sort of a grey area there whether you should or shouldn't, and that's what people used to do all the time. But in theory, if even as an EU citizen, if you intend to spend more than 90 days here, you have to register as a resident. So I can't see that changing for third country nationals.
No. And David Towers has a question here. I don't know if you can all read it, but I'll take it through. I think I'll paraphrase this one because this is about EU citizens and the 9180 rule, so-called. Can EU citizens circumvent the 90-day rule by leaving Spain for 1 or 2 days after being there for 90 days and then return? So basically you leave the country and then come back.
It would, well, yeah, it goes back to what I've just said about the swallows. You wouldn't have to navigate anything because you don't get stamped in and don't get stamped out. So in theory, no one knows, they wouldn't know how long you've spent in the country. Though it's just going back to a conversation that I had this week, right, with a financial advisor who said that a client of theirs who hadn't declared residency, who was European, had been caught by the tax office because they've been taking money out of the bank, apparently. I don't know. So they knew that they were here. So maybe, I don't know, but no, you wouldn't. Why are you trying to circumnavigate rules to not become a resident? Is it a fiscal thing? Because if that's the case, then if you spend 183 days here, you're a fiscal resident anyway. And
yeah, he does say actually. He does say later on in his thing he doesn't want to stay for more than 183 days in a year. He just basically wants to spend. I think he wants to spend the winter here.
Yeah,
and
so
he's an Irish citizen, I think.
That's the tough one. That's the grey area that we're talking about, the swallows, where people are trying to do things the right way, but it's difficult to spend the whole winter if you're an EU citizen without registering as a resident. Yeah, I suppose if you spend some time out and come back. No, they're not really. The police don't really control this that much, as we know. Brits were doing it for years, where they would spend 4 or 5 months and not register as residents.
Yeah, and I know plenty of Irish people who spent the whole winter, spent like 5 months in Spain and don't even bother leaving. But not officially, it's not the right thing to do. They should be becoming a resident if they spend more than 3 months at a time.
Yeah. Yeah, and so it's a difficult one. It's a grey area, as we say, and it's not. The problem is as well. I mean, these laws are structured for the whole of the EU, and evidently we live in the Garden of Europe, don't we? So people want to spend a little bit more longer, a little bit more time here. It's very much structured around people who are working and stuff. Whereas here it's quite feasible to spend 5 years of the winter. 5 months of the winter and then go back to a colder country for the summer.
Yeah, very true. Let's get the next question up. That's from Tracy Cowdery. It's actually not a question, this one. This is just a statement saying basically we originally hoped as a couple that we could retire in Spain, but it appears to be difficult to manage unless you have thousands in the bank. Shame, we will just have to visit as much as we're allowed. That's a very common comment.
Yeah. It's difficult now, obviously, for people with British passports, not able to be simply anywhere.
Yeah, as you say, very often it is what it is. That's what it is now.
Yeah.
So, a quick one from Alan, just to clarify, what do you need to demonstrate for NLV after 5 years? So when you're going for your permanent residency, he says, is it 5 times the ETIAS?
No. So at that point, you'll be demonstrating. That's a good question, actually. You'll be demonstrating that at the third renewal that you're basically keeping up your income. It's not 5 times the pre-ETIAS. It'd be actually 100%, because just to make sure you've got the money to carry you over to the permanent residency. So it'd be your annual income at that point that you'd need to demonstrate.
Brilliant. So just 1 times ETIAS.
Yeah.
Brilliant. That's good news. Let's see. So next question was all about, well, actually, this one relates to me. No, we'll come to that afterwards. Talking about buying a business in Spain. Someone says, Lynn Swift, it was, can you buy a business in Spain? She lives in the UK. Thanks in advance.
Yeah,
It's a big, wide question, isn't it?
yeah, you can buy a business in Spain. Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
quick. Yes.
Yeah, you can buy a business in Spain, and then depending on your whatever passport status you have, obviously if you're EU, it's easier to buy a business and work here. And if you buy a business in Spain and want to come over on a self-employed visa, then evidently you can do that as well. But the complications are bigger than that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the question maybe I'm reading between the lines. Not that there are very many lines on that question, but I think she's asking more about how easy it is to buy a business and getting you'd have to have a self-employment visa. I think it's more of a visa question, isn't it? It's quite a difficult one to do, but I know people who've done it.
Yeah.
That's the only answer I have for that one. Alan is back on. Alan Lackenby. Hello again, Alan. He says, oh yeah, interesting. Once you have your first year visa when landing in Spain, do you still need to use the non-EU queue, or can you use the E1 once again? Thanks. Well, that's to do with what kind of passport you have. If you have a UK passport, then you're still the non-EU. So that doesn't affect, your visa doesn't affect which queue you stand in. Is that right, Chris?
Don't know, I've only been through Malaga, and it's one queue for all there.
Is it? Okay. There we
Every
go.
time I got in, I've only been through twice as well. It's one queue for all there, so just like yeah. Go. So I don't know. I suppose it depends on the airport. Again, it's one of those where it really depends locally where you go. When I've arrived in Malaga a couple of times late at night, we've all been shoved in the same queue. Most of the protesters, some guys I was stood next to. But I heard that happened in Lanzarote the other day. And then they didn't even stamp people on the way in. They weren't even stamping passports. So I suppose that's down to the airport where you go, where you arrive.
Yep. Fair enough. Okay, so this one is about. Oh, this is from Graham. Hello, Graham. From one of our regular viewers, has some very good Facebook groups, and he asks, "Have you?" Oh, this is for me. Have you photocopied your card? This is the residency card that I've just got, and put the copy somewhere safe. And where do you keep the card? Do you carry it in your wallet? Sounds like he's trying to rob me. Where are you keeping it? Can I just slide it out of your pocket? No, Graham wouldn't do that. He's very honest. I have photocopied the card for my records. I'm keeping it on the cloud so that I can print it off in case I lose my residency card, because you do need the details of your residency card, as Chris told me when we collected it the other day. If you need to go back and say, I've lost my card, I need a new one. Yeah.
There's. I mean, in theory, you're supposed to carry the card and your photo ID on you. Which, if you're, I didn't have an ID card. Do you have an ID card from Ireland as well, or is it just a passport that you have?
There's a kind of what's called a PPSI card, which is kind of the card you need for working. It's got your national insurance number on it.
Okay, cool. So the way this used to happen a lot with obviously pre-Brexit, when Brits used to get the green card, what you have now. It used to be quite, it used to be a pain, because in theory you're supposed to carry that card and your photo ID on you, but most European countries issue an ID card, which means you can keep everything in your wallet, whereas the UK don't, and that would mean carrying your passport with you as well. That's the theory. Now, in practice, I used to carry mine about because I needed it for work. And it's hard to do. You are supposed to keep photo ID on you. If you've got a driving license on you, most of the time that suffices with the police. And carrying your passport around with you is tough. Probably not the best idea at times, but you are supposed to carry photo ID on you.
I normally carry mine in my pouch. You can see on that photograph, actually, that's my passport is in that the bum bag, I think we call it, or the fanny bag, as they call them in America, which is much funnier. And so there we are. That's me outside the Ministry of the Interior building. That's the kind of brand new building in Velez Malaga, or Torre del Mar. And there we are close. And that's my card, which is actually sitting upside down in my hand there. Didn't realise. You look a bit like a mercenary in that picture, Chris.
I know. I was sort of wearing my biker jacket and black mask.
Black mask, and you're squinting to see the screen, so it looks like you're being really mean. So there we go. I thought that was funny.
The glasses are as wonky as usual. I've always got wonky glasses.
Yeah, it's funny. It's because we're looking. We've got ourselves reversed in the screen, but not the same as a mirror. So you can't adjust them. They go the other way. Anyway,
I think it's just my big nose. I don't think it's anything serious. To be honest with you.
Yeah, so that's the thing. We're both a bit like that. If we turned sideways, it would come out to here, wouldn't it? There we go. Let's see. I've got another question from Alan McAfee there, but I'll come back to that in a second. We'll talk a bit more about my residency process as well, because I've got a picture to show everybody of all of the documents, or I might leave that to another video if we're running on for too long. Let's get to question 11, which is here. Patrick Queeley had a follow-up question. I don't even think we've got to his first question yet. Here it is. We wish to travel in the EU for more than 90 days, but never spending more than 90 days. He's an Irish citizen, by the way, but never spending more than 90 days in any one country. If this is not possible, then which country do we register in? Well, basically, Patrick, as you've got freedom of movement in the Schengen zone in the EU, you can travel around as much as you want, as long as you don't spend more than 3 months in one EU country. You don't have to register in any of them. You can stay a resident of your original country where you set off from. Is it like pass the parcel? No, it's not. You can keep moving. You've got freedom of movement, and as long as you don't spend more than 90 days, you can travel around ad infinitum. It'll be an interesting life. I'll put the question up. There we go. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, and just to add to that, when we are doing EU residencies, and we have done again when Brits used to register on the EU residency platform, the police have never castigated anybody who spent more than 90 days, in the country. In our experience, if they're EU, they've just basically assisted in making sure that they're legal as such. So that, as we know that the third country national laws, general immigration law, is policed quite strictly. Airports and generally, within the country. But at the moment, I'm not encouraging people not to register. I'm just saying that the EU sort of 90-day law doesn't seem to be policed as strictly, evidently, as the third country national.
Yeah. Great stuff. And we go to, hello, Alan. Alan from Unitech Communications. Here he is, as usual, just listening on site in Lincolnshire. Happy New Year to you, Alan. Alan, sorry, Barry. It's Barry, of course it is. And yes, Happy New Year to you in Lincolnshire. You're usually watching on a huge screen, aren't you? So you can see us in 4K.
Where in Lincolnshire? Where in Lincolnshire?
Yeah, where are you, Barry?
I know the town. I'm from Cambridgeshire, so I'm just below.
Brothers in there we go. Yeah. So Alan has a question about ETIAS. There's an interesting one. What do you know about ETIAS, which I believe starts at the back end of this year? Yeah, ETIAS is coming in. It's basically a more organised system for third country nationals coming in and out of the Schengen zone. It's basically a digital system of what we've got at the moment. And it means that the border is just more controlled, so that there's a record on the system of when you're coming in over the border into the Schengen zone. It will make it more difficult for you to break the 9180 rule, and once you've gone over your 90th day, then presumably something can come up on a screen and they can catch you quicker instead of just when you happen to get to the border. So I know quite a lot about
the bottom of the passport. Then I haven't got my passport here. The bars at the bottom.
Yeah.
which is, yeah.
And so it's just going to make it more difficult to bypass anything. I actually was up in the middle of the night sneezing. As you can tell, I've got a bit of a cold, which is apologies for using the handkerchief all the time. My nose is running, but I was up for half the night reading about ETIAS while I couldn't sleep and I was sneezing away. So I know a fair amount about it, but I won't go into it in depth. I'll just say it's a strong system of controlling the borders of the Schengen zone. There we go. And so, do we have any more questions? Yeah, I think all of the questions are about residency, maybe apart from this one. It's that one. Where do you actually start with the NLV process? I keep reading different articles. Also, would we need an immigration solicitor? Asks Lynn Swift. Well, don't get an immigration solicitor. Go to www.upsticks.es and talk to Chris. That's the simple answer to that. And where do you start with the NLV process? Well, start with Chris, or you can also see lots of videos on Chris's website or on this channel. We've talked in this show quite a lot about the non-lucrative visa, and we've gone through the process starting about a year and a half before you actually get to Spain. So plenty of information on here. And if you want to talk to Chris directly, you can arrange a free call back. So there you go. Massive plug for Upsticks.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think exactly what you said there. It's in case of where, it's more a case of when, because obviously the time and the documentation is crucial. So yeah, the where you apply at your consulate, but the when is when you get started. Is getting the timeline in place is the crucial thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get on to EU residency, which is all about what I have just done. I'm going to put up the question that we had on the screen here. Oh no, that's not it. That's Lynn again. Hello, Lynn again. I need to put up number 7. And that is from Jill Stevens. She says, congratulations for getting a residency. Can I ask when you applied for your residencia? My daughter and a partner applied for theirs in November 2020 and still haven't heard. Now, I think Jill might be assuming that I'm a UK citizen and was getting a visa, but actually, no, Jill, I'm an Irish citizen. So I just applied for my residency in Spain. How long has it taken, Chris, from beginning to end, from when I applied for my NIE?
Always taking a couple of months at least, hasn't it? Yeah, 3. I think there was a slight delay with the NIE. Again, it's good questions. It relates back to the fiscal things we were talking about earlier on, wasn't it? Because in the end, they made a decision to push a little bit of paperwork back because of a fiscal element with Antonio. Again, you had to have your NIE in place for certain elements of your application, which meant getting that first, where in some occasions you don't get that first, which means you can bring your appointment forward. But yeah, it's taken a couple of months at least, hasn't it? 2 to 3 months to get it all lined up. It depends on your individual circumstance as well.
That's it, yes. Yeah, because we'd actually set up the NIE appointment for just a couple of days after I arrived in Spain. And unfortunately, because car broke down and we couldn't actually get to the south of Spain, you had to cancel that one and make one in, what was it, November the 17th or something like that, which was more than a month later. So, and then it just got later and later. And
if you remember because you came, I think initially, because we said we might do a video, get a bit of content. You were going to come with me to the NIE appointment, and I was going to assist there and do it in person. But then, obviously, everything that happened, you gave me power of attorney to go on your behalf, and met with Tom and who translated for you, didn't you? And then that meant that if a cancellation came up, I could literally just run off and go and do it. Instead of dragging you down here, but as it turns out, cancellation didn't turn up anyway. So. yeah, absolutely. We got there in the end. And Lee says, how long did it take you from start to finish? I think we've just answered that one. From arriving in Spain on the 10th of October to getting it
just a couple of days ago in January. And where have you ended up? Well, I'm in Malaga province, right at the edge of Malaga province, almost in Granada province, in Compita, which is up in the mountains. I can see them from here. Actually, I keep pointing out up there, which obviously you can't see, but the mountains in the background. And I was right up there at the top of that one the other day. So I've finally managed to walk up there, and it's marvellous. You can see Africa from up there. Brilliant. There we go. So thank you for asking that. Oh, and Barry from Unitech says he's in Bourne in Lincolnshire.
All right, Bourne. Bourne, excellent. Yeah, I know Bourne. I do know Bourne. It's not too far away from Peterborough, where I'm from.
Yeah, that's not too far from. Liz has a half sister who lives very close to there as well. There you go. He says on an industrial laundry. He says that's interesting. What do you mean by that, Barry? Yeah. Are you sitting on an industrial laundry on a big washing machine? That's the image I've got in my head anyway. So we were talking about my residency. Let's just get up. What happens first on the residency then, Chris, for me? I've got lots and lots of pictures I can show on here. And we have, I think the first one would be the NIE certificate. That was the first thing I got, wasn't it?
Yeah, so because you were, we got your residency on a self-employed basis, and this always happens. It happens quite a lot where there's a chicken and egg situation where you can register as self-employed using an NIE number without having residency, all right, and then use that documentation to get your residency. But evidently, if an NIE certificate is in theory only for non-residents. And for somebody who wants to do a fiscal action, which is a non-resident fiscal action, which isn't your case. But on many occasions, you have to get your NIE tax number, let's call it your NIE and tax number first. Then the accountant uses that to register with a social security. Oh, you could do it yourself. Obviously, I would never advise it, but it's always best to get somebody who's qualified to do your social security, your tax office registration for you. It's the best way. And then with that, register you with the authorities as self-employed, which then gives you access to the healthcare in Spain, and obviously various other things that you have to do. So you've got there, and your healthcare certificate came through on the same day, didn't it?
It did, yes. That's the public health certificate there. Documento accreditivo del derecho a asistencia sanitaria pública. So the accreditation document for the right to public health assistance. There we go. My translation is I can read Spanish really, really well, but speaking it, I'm having a bit of trouble.
So it relates back to the three main things that you have to. Well, there's two main things you have to prove with getting a residency, and the two principal parts of getting a residency. Any residency application, obviously, there's lots that encompass an unlooked visa and stuff like that. But the two main principles are always that you've got enough money and you've got healthcare. Yeah. Right, that's the two main things. So we always say with an EU residency, it's always good if you could prove where you live as well, because they want to see where you live. So a Padron certificate, but if you're coming a resident, that should be a problem. There we go.
Well, there's the Padron certificate right there for Compita.
And in your case, being self-employed, the healthcare is covered by your self-employed registration. We needed to get the NIE number to do that first, and then get the healthcare certificate. And then obviously, if you're recent, it's always a good idea. If you've recently registered as self-employed, they don't always ask for it, but it's always a good idea if you recently registered self-employed to take extra means, economic means. So if you've got deposits in bank accounts or any sort of tax return or anything can prove that you have got funds to support yourself, that you've not just registered as self-employed to get residency, then it's a good idea to take that as well.
Yes, absolutely. And I'll just show up on the screen. This is the bank certificate I'm with the Cashier Bank. As you can see there, that's the certificate that you can get to show what the amount that you have in the bank. Obviously, I've redacted it, so I'm not even showing my name and account number and everything on there. But that's what one of those can look like, at least at my bank. So
Yeah.
that's kind of proof.
And they're all pretty similar. They're all pretty similar. And as I say, again, to reiterate, with any residency or visa application or renewal, if funds and assets are in Spain, it's a lot easier.
Yeah. And what else do I have on here? Oh, the Autonomo. This document here. What's that one, Chris? That's all to do with the
your
Autonomo.
social security registration. So basically that proves that you have registered and you have the right to work as a self-employed person in Spain. On many occasions, because certainly happened with you as well, without that, we always, because we go a bit belts and braces with everything, we always like to have the healthcare certificate in place, just in case there's any sort of delay in the system. The police can check on their computer whether what you're presenting is correct. So they can go onto Social Security and see that you have what they call the alta, which means that you are registered to be self-employed, and this certificate proves that. So on most circumstances, you don't need the healthcare certificate. You can just take this along, and it'll prove that. Though if there's any delay in the system on the computers or whatever, it's always a good idea if you're using an accountant and you're going for your residency to upload, have that and the healthcare certificate. Brilliant.
Oh, there's a previous document that I'm going to show everybody, which happens before all this. This is what an apostille looks like. So this is the sort of thing that you need if you've had a document to get your visa, for example. And in my case, to get my marriage certificate. Apostille, that's the next process that we've got going here.
You might propose to put you underwater again there, sorry.
Oh dear. Can you hear me better now? I know. Can you talk about the apostille? Can you hear me?
Yeah. I can't hear you properly there. Yeah, so the apostille. So now this is going to be used now. So for example, so any document that you need that has to carry apostille. Obviously, any document now from the UK that you need to use in Spain, because the UK is outside the EU. Marriage certificate registration document would need to carry the apostille, and everything. If Liz, when we do her application now, which is going through, you'd need the marriage certificate. She's coming in on the basis of your status. The marriage certificate would need to be legalised, the apostille, and translated as well.
Brilliant. Can you hear me any better now? Am I cleared up?
Not really.
Okay. I'm going to put up another document and let's see what that is, and maybe you can talk about that if you can hear me. Let's see. Padron. Let's try and get that. Well, that's the Padron again. Modello 037. Tell us what that is.
So that's the tax office registration. So that's when your accountant, again, you could do this yourself, never recommend doing it, is when you're registered with a tax office, and that explains your circumstance and under which you're registered, what epigraphy what code, epigraphy is like a code, a self-employment code, what activity you're going to do. And that basically proves that you are registered and can operate with a tax office, which means you can issue facturas and you can write off your expenses, etc., etc.
Brilliant. And this is what you end up with at the end of the day.
Yeah. Oh, we can hear you again now. Yeah, that's it. That's the card, the flimsy card.
Yeah, the front of the card. This card is. I should show it, but I've not got it. I've not got it on my person right now. But yeah, that's what it looks like. The front of the card is kind of matte. It's not got a plastic cover, but the back has got a plastic cover. So this is the one that I was talking about when Graham asked the question earlier. It's the size of a normal bank card, and gives your number, your place of birth, your nationality, your NIE number, and your address. So there we go.
And there's the ES flag is actually quite new. That's only from last year. They never used to carry that.
Oh yeah, I didn't know that. There you go. So that's my official stamp. All done.
Have you got a copy of the back of it there?
No, I have somewhere on my computer. I did do a copy of it, but when I converted it to show on the screen, it's just got the front of it.
There's a code on the back, which the verification code, which is used for fiscal purposes as well, which an accountant or yourself, if you're doing stuff yourself, you would need that code with the tax office.
Okay, maybe I'll show that.
Always a good idea to have a copy of the front and the back.
Perfect. Good to know. Good to know. Right. We have an answer from Barry from Unitech. He says he's working in an industrial laundry, new fibre network, still living the dream. Brilliant. Thanks for that. And Lee is asking, do you know a good tax advisor to tap into a house sale in the UK? We're moving to Alicante, hopefully Easter, and somebody who can speak Spanish. I don't know anybody. Can you recommend someone?
Yes, I can. We've got an IFA, Jeremy from Spectrum. He's very good. He'll be able to talk to you about that.
There we go. So yeah, get in touch with Chris and he'll be able to put you in touch there.
Yeah.
So www.upsticks.es once again.
Yeah.
There we go. And one final question from Alan McAfee. I'm retiring in November 2024. That's good that you're looking ahead. When should I contact Chris to get the ball rolling so everything is in place for November, December? We have a house in Spain, NIE, and pay non-residence tax.
I'd say the beginning of 2024, January of that year, because then obviously we're going to know the ETIAS requirements and stuff, and we'll definitely, I think, November, depending on where you are, Alan. There, if you're London way, then definitely contact us in the January, because we need to just work out the summer problems, but hopefully they'll be resolved in 3 years' time. And if you're Edinburgh or Manchester, where it's not too much of an issue, then you could probably contact around the March time.
There we go. And in the run up to that, just watch loads of videos on this channel.
I think there's going to be lots of content and changes before then.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, just keep. Also, Alan says he's in Kent, so it's going to be the London Embassy. Yeah. And you were saying about the difficulties in the summer. That's because loads of students apply for their visas, and so there's a bit of a bottleneck as you get towards the summer. Yeah,
so certainly in London, and they advised me against that last year as well. So you've just got to, though their appointment booking system, which they've put in place, is working really, really, really well at the moment. So let's hope that continues.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've got through absolutely every question and everything that I was going to say. Is there anything else we've missed out, Chris, about my residency? Did we miss out any forms or anything else you need to know?
So we say there's the application form. It's a good idea to have that done and taken with you. If you have any doubts on your application form, you're doing it yourself, well, look, if you're getting somebody to assist you, they should take that with them anyway, filled out, ready to go. If you have any doubts filling it out, then there's absolutely no harm in taking one that's filled out and a blank one, because they will let you. There'd be a very bad policeman not to let you, correct it, fill it out there. The taxes, evidently, take the taxes prepaid. They have to be prepaid for the appointment. And
you pay those. You pay those at the bank.
Yes, yeah, you pay them at the bank. You can pay them now. There's bank machines which will accept payment, which is, I think it's BBVA and Caja will let you actually pay them through the machine. And if not, pay them in the bank. But just don't assume always that the bank is going to be open nowadays to pay. Plan at least. I don't think the morning. I actually paid yours in the morning because I was in Alicante the day before then. But plan it, because banks now have this, because of COVID, only open from 8 till 11 and accept taxes on the second Tuesday of the month if you're not a client, stuff like that. So it's always worth looking at your local branch, what timetable they've got. And then just another thing is, if you're coming towards the close to the end of the year, just check out, don't plan too much in advance, because if you pay your taxes in 2021 and you get to the desk and they want to see taxes paid in the fiscal year 2022 because there's a little code at the top changes, then you might come unstuck. So we have registered this week TIE cards for non-lucrative visas with taxes paid in 2021 in Lanzarote, and it wasn't a problem, but it's something I've heard of in the past. So if you are at the beginning of the year, like for example with your taxes, instead of pulling them off, paying them and having them ready before I went on holiday, I did them quickly before I came to your appointment, just to make sure that they were the same fiscal year.
Brilliant. And a funny one from Barry. Here's the big black redaction line covering up the balance, Andrew. He says, that's my bank balance, I'm sure. Well, I'm not sure if it's the big black line that's covering my bank balance. It's not that big, but it's big enough to get me through because it has to be. Thank you. Thank you for the humour there, Barry. And Lee says, well, this is the first time I've tuned in live. We'll keep my eye out as I've learned lots. Thanks to you both, from Lee. Well, glad to have you here, Lee. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on every show, hopefully. Well, that's about it for the questions. So should we talk about the prizes? Because actually the two prizes that we gave away before Christmas haven't been claimed yet. And I can't get in touch with the people who won the prizes. There was the first prize was the T-shirt, this very T-shirt actually, from Chris T, KRYSTI, and they were on the Go Spain Facebook group. And the second prize was the pen and the folder from Upsticks, and that's A. Elizabeth Brown, and they were on the expats. She was on the expats Andalusia Spain Facebook group. So if you're watching, you two, get in touch with us. This is your last chance. Otherwise, we'll just put the prizes in for the next time. And the prizes that we're going to give away the next time that Chris is on, I will show. I've got one of them here, actually. Let's show this one on the screen. One of them is this lovely yellow folder. These are soft. They're like felt, aren't they? Oh, they are felt with a little clip here. And these are very useful. They're A4. And there are, let's see, let's put this other one up as well. There's a grey one and I think a blue one. I think Chris has probably got them there as well.
There you go. There's your colours.
There you go. Blue one.
This is the ones we use for Spanish wheels. Maybe I should be using the more cheerful one for a Spanish wheel. But...
Oh, you used the. I don't know. The black is appropriate because that's what you wear, isn't it?
Yeah.
There you go. And yes, I get the other folder as well, which this isn't on the giveaway, but you saw this on the picture earlier. This is actually holding all of my important documents, and this is what you get from Chris when he's organising all of your visa and your NIE and your TIE, whatever it is. So this has got all of my very important documents, including my health certificate and all the bank details, etc. there. And these are really handy. They're kind of a really nice, strong, long-lasting plastic. So there you go.
You were the first person to get the EU one. So we have them for the visas, but we did special EU residency ones this year. So you were the first person to get one.
Brilliant. I feel honoured. Let's stick that one back up again, because so the prizes are, there's the grey one, the blue one, the yellow one. So you can win either of those. I don't know if we're going to, it wouldn't be worth giving them all to one person, would it? So
no, let's split them up. Tell me where they need to go. I think we should give Barry and Lee a prize for their contribution.
That's a good idea. Barry and Lee, if you could go into the, I think the comments on the video, or get me a message through with your email address maybe, or something like that, so that I can get in touch with you, so that we can get your address So get your address to Chris. And this is another prize. What's this one, Chris? What does it say on there?
So this was donated by our office is in a place called Vivero de Empresas, which is a business centre in Alavenda de la Torre, and it's run by the town hall here, and it's an innovation centre as well for new businesses and stuff. And this was donated by them for us to give away, which is a backpack with Vivero de Empresas on it. So there's not many of these. Limited edition backpacks these are. So we had a business breakfast with the town hall and the mayor was here, and I said, oh, and they gave us all one of these, and I went, oh, you've got a few left over, and we do give out prizes. And I was like, can I have another one to give away? And they're like, oh yeah, sure. So there we go. That's where we got that from.
Brilliant. And as I say, the t-shirt, it's all scrunched up. It's very nice, good quality material, and it's at least big enough to fit me, this one. So if it can do that, it can fit a few people. And we've got another question coming on the live chat. Patrick Queeley. Oh, this question again. Can non-EU spouse travel with an EU citizen, UK resident, throughout the EU for more than 180 days without being forced to leave or apply for residency somewhere? What I've read on this through the citizens' advice in Spain is that because the EU citizen has freedom of movement in the EU, and if their EU spouse is travelling with them, it's against EU law to actually expel and deny the rights of the EU citizen. And if they expelled the spouse of an EU citizen, then that's exactly the same. So effectively, you kind of get the same right of movement, but in practice, if you start going across borders, then the border control, there may be an issue if somebody doesn't know the exact laws or they're interpreting the law in different ways. So it would all come to a head when you left the Schengen zone or the EU. What do you think, Chris?
Try to get back in. Yeah, I agree. I couldn't put it any better myself. As you say, yeah, it's unfortunately a lot of the immigration laws and freedom of movement stuff is, as with residency, is down to the interpretation of the person that you get on the desk, or as with driving licenses, the policeman that stops you. So it's always good advice to be as legal as possible where possible. Yeah.
And of course, if you spend more than 3 months in a lot of EU countries like Spain, certainly, you've got to get residency. But there are ways, if you stay in the Schengen area for all of that time, can you stay for more than 180 days? Well, yeah, if you're an EU citizen, you can.
Yeah.
So, and of course, when ETIAS comes in later on this year, that means that you're going to be on the system, and presumably at the end of 90 days, it's going to register that you've stayed for longer than 90 days. But I haven't
read about that. I wonder if when the renewals come in, I wonder if the immigration authorities have access to a lot of platforms. So, like, the tax office, the social security, stuff like that, even the census. So we like Customs and Excise have access to it as well, the same sort of platform, and they can tell when someone's registered on a Padron, for example. So a lot of people come scuppered when they're trying to waive taxes. If they've only just declared residency but been registered on the Padron three years ago, they can't waive tax. And I wonder if the immigration authorities would have access to that to then see how much time you've actually spent in Spain. For example, if you're renewing an unlimited visa, and you have the minimum amount of time that you're allowed, the maximum time you're allowed out of Spain during that period. I wonder if they'd have access to that to, instead of the stamps in the passport, look at it that way.
Yeah, and of course, the more as time goes on, I suspect all of these systems will draw closer together and have access to each other. That's the idea of ETIAS, that it's all going to be linked in. Of course, ETIAS is a Europe-wide one. And are they going to link in with each individual country's systems so that the police system? So if you get stopped by the police and they register your passport as ID, is it going to show up on the ETIAS system? That's the question, I suppose.
More and more, it is interlinked. More and more, each department has more access to stuff like, as you say, when we years ago doing a residency application, when in theory, I would never advise it at the moment, but in theory, we could have turned up with just your NIE number and just said, and the extra proof of funds, and said, he's self-employed, check it. And if at your appointment, if you notice, she walked off and printed a piece of paper, then came back and then had the A4 sheet, which then they print with your residency card, punch it out, and they keep the sheet as the proof you get your card. The piece of paper that she printed out was the proof off of her system that you were registered as self-employed, and she didn't retain anything that I showed her. So whereas in the past they used to retain that. So, but I would never advise that at an appointment. Take all your proof with you, because, as I say, if there's no access on their system or something, then you've got it there. But yeah, more and more, they're certainly globally aware of your situation.
Great. You might have heard my phone buzz. This is Wendy, the wife of Lee, who is the kickboxer man. Has got in touch. So yes, Wendy, we do need your UK address for a prize. Thank you. There's the answer to that one. Thank you for getting in touch. And Barry says, ooh, presumably that's in response to winning the prize. So I think, oh no, there are two more questions. We will finish the program soon, but very quickly. Donna says, thanks guys, we're on the countdown, 7 months and counting. Ferry is booked with pet friendly cabin. Thanks Skatz for the advice. I checked for bank holidays. So it's not a question. That's because I came over on a bank holiday, broke down on the Sunday, and there was a bank holiday on the Tuesday and a Puente day, which means that most of Spain is closed in between the two. So I had to wait for 3 days. But yeah, good. Check for bank holidays. Don't travel on one of them. And so thanks for that, Donna. And Patrick Queeley again. Oh, he says he's not intending to stay in any one country for more than 90 days. Can spouse still be expelled? I think we kind of answered that one before. Yeah. It's it's a kind of a grey area, and will get less grey as ETIAS comes into force. There we go. So I think we've done it. We've got through the programme. And yes, indeed. So Chris will be back in 2 weeks' time, and I'm not sure exactly what we'll be talking about, but I will announce that on the U2 Spain Facebook group page, and also to our subscribers. So if you haven't subscribed already, do subscribe, because then we can be in touch and send messages that way. And I'll also post the details of what we're going to be doing on next Saturday's show, but that won't be with Chris. That will be with somebody else. Maybe Chris can give me a suggestion of who we can talk to then, because I was going to have Rochelle, but I think she's busy next week. So anyway, we'll talk about that afterwards, Chris.
We'll find someone. Don't forget to get these addresses across to me so I can get the prizes out.
Absolutely, certainly. I'll get as soon as Wendy sends that UK address on to me, I'll get that over to you. And also we'll choose. Let's see. Yeah. Anyway, we'll choose the prize winners for the other prizes in 2 weeks' time.
Cool.
Lovely. So we'll say, everybody, give Chris a big wave goodbye, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thanks for having me again.
You're very welcome. It's been a privilege and a pleasure, as usual. See you in 2 weeks. There we go. So, as usual, our show next week will be at the regular time of 9 o'clock if you're in the UK or Ireland, or 10 o'clock if you're in Spain. Also, don't forget to check out, as you may have noticed, that Liz, my darling wife, hasn't been on the chat today. She's a little bit busy, so don't forget to check out her channel, where U2 Yoga, where you can get free yoga and meditation classes. They're really, really good, especially if you're just starting out or you're old and stiff. There's also U2 Aromatherapy, which is a lovely page too. And don't forget to check out the merchandise page, where we've got all of our goodies. All of the links can be found in the description below. If you can't find the video description below, there's usually something down here, a little arrow saying more, and it just brings up a whole list of things, including the time codes for the video, which will be available over the next day or so once I've put them in. And that's all for this week. Thank you so much for tuning in. Sorry about the cold, bunged up sinus thing going on. Don't worry, it's not COVID. Subscribe and click on the bell ting, and I will see you very shortly. And let's go with the music, shall we? Goodbye to everybody on the chat, and see you soon. Peace and love. Bye for now.